Hi, today I'm doing a review on the Sony 24-105 F4 G OSS lens. I've had this lens for over 3 years, and for a period of time it had been my only lens, so I think I've had enough experience with it that I really want to talk about it before I move on. I'm indeed thinking about changing out all my zoom lenses and start to go with prime only. So in this video I want to talk a little bit about what I liked about this lens and what I think may be some of its weaknesses, and of course I will give my opinion on who I think this lens is best suited for. Now I must excuse myself, I hope you could excuse me in fact, in the sense that this video is going to be recorded directly from the camera because I don't actually have a lavalier mic and I'm not really a professional reviewer, so I figured what the heck, let's go ahead and just make a video on this lens before I sell it. So this lens was released by Sony, and it was a sensation, I think, when it just came on the market, because it had a really useful zoom range from 24mm all the way to 105mm, and this covers what most photographers, enthusiasts would normally use, and these are some of the easy to use focal lengths, right? But of course, this being a plus, wherever there are opportunities, there are risks, there are opportunities, and wherever there are pluses, there are some minuses. And the minus here is that, of course, this zoom range doesn't go far enough on the wide end, and doesn't go long enough on the long end. So even though you do, in some sense, have an all-in-one lens, it is not really all-in-one. You want to, for example, if you want to have some really unique perspectives, you probably will need something that is wider, 21 or 18 or even wider millimeters on a full frame. And when you want to go really for the reach, 105 is good, it's better than 70, but it's still not long enough in a lot of occasions. So that's the focal range, the pluses and the minuses. And another thing that I want to talk about is the handling of this lens. So I think it has really nice build quality, considering that it's a plastic lens. It has the barrel itself is metal. It has a metal mount, right? It has a metal mount, and the filter thread on the front, filter thread here is also metal. So these are the pluses. So a lot of Sony lenses, even for example the Sony size 24 to 70 f4, and I think the 16 to 35 millimeter lenses F4, those lenses had a metal exterior, but inside they are actually plastic. And this is a reversal, which I think is perhaps better in terms of build quality and durability. I've used these lenses a lot, and I don't find any degradation in any physical appearance. So this, on this front, it certainly is a plus, and of course there are weather sealings at all the points, all the buttons, the switches, and of course at the mount, so that brings a peace of mind. So that's also a plus, I would say. And overall I just find it to be a well-built lens. Having said that, of course, it is not a perfect lens in build. I've read that people have observed, experienced a lot of sample variations when it comes to this 24 to 105 G OSS lens. And this is understandable because if you just know anything about the construction of the lenses, there are usually three types of lenses, right? There's a standard lens, which is more or less symmetrical. There is the telephoto designs with convex lenses in front and concave lenses in the back, and of course the retro focus or reverse telephoto lenses, which are wide-angle lenses, which have a completely different, the opposite design. They have concave elements in front and convex elements towards the back of the lens. And in that situation, of course, that means when you are going from a wide at 24 to a standard focal length of 50 to a telephoto range 105 or even just 70, it necessitates a lot of moving parts in order to rearrange the internals of a zoom lens, and especially one that covers such a, I think, 4 times zoom range. And so this basically means that there are quite a large number of moving parts, and this large number of moving parts compounded with, I think this lens has if I'm not mistaken, 17 elements in 14 groups, so a large number of elements, so that basically everything adds up, meaning that if you have just, let's say you have the same production tolerances, just simply by having this many elements, and because you have these many moving parts inside the lens for it to achieve this zoom range, it basically means that you're going to have some, difficult to control sample variations. I do think that I have a good sample here. I think that's part of the reason I've kept it for so long. So that is also something to consider. If you are buying a used lens, of course you can test it out. And if you buy one new from reputed distributors, you probably want to test yourself to find whether the lens satisfies your needs. And but of course, if you are buying grey imports, that can be an issue, and perhaps that is also why grey imports of this lens, I think, is quite heavily discounted, and I would imagine that situations with returns is part of the reason. So that's the build, and then I also want to talk about just all-out image quality. All-out image quality-wise, I find the rendering, especially at the longer end, to be rather smooth. And this is something that perhaps someone would not necessarily expect from a zoom lens, from one that is F4 nonetheless. But I do find the rendering to be smooth, especially the transition from the focus plane to the autofocus areas. I find it to be quite smooth. And when we talk about the wider end, however, I don't find it to be that smooth, but because I guess Sony has these rounded apertures, and they are rounded quite a bit, so as long as you're shooting at f4 wide open, the rendering is decent. It's certainly not so busy, although you can, in certain lighting situations, get some busy shots. The bokeh situation, I think, is quite rounded. It doesn't have any of these signs of these awning rings. Not very obvious. It had some, I guess, which is typical of a spherical element. So in that part, I think it's okay. When it comes to sharpness and resolution, I find that the overall sharpness to be okay, especially for a zoom lens of this zoom range. But of course, I think this depends a lot on sample variation, so I wouldn't say too much about this. If you are lucky, you get a high quality sample, you are going to experience a quite usable, quite versatile zoom lens that can go, that really is perhaps all you need when you are traveling and when you want to travel lightly, when you don't want to even carry, for example, a camera bag. You just want to have a camera on your hand and the lens on the camera. This could be a solution. But when you want that critical image quality, I do find that, well, it has rather good flare control. It is certainly not up to the standards of some of the nicer prime lenses. And well, it does have a good rendering. Of course, it's not comparable to some of the prime lenses that you can find of a similar class. And I think the biggest downside of this lens optically is that it is good enough that you will love it. But it's not so good that in side-by-side situations you would still be satisfied with it. What I mean by this is that you are always left wondering if you had a prime lens, a good prime lens from Voigtlander or Zeiss, or maybe even just from Sony, you may get a better quality picture. So it's really a trade-off between having the flexibility and getting a shot out there and getting the best that you can of a certain shot, perhaps at the expense of not being able to capture the image with a higher degree of certainty. Having said that, of course, with a prime lens with a wider maximum aperture, you could actually capture in low light situations with higher degree of certainty as well. Because at f4, once it gets dark at night, this lens is not as useful anymore. You can shoot at 3200 ISO, and you do get a lot of noises, and above 3200 ISO, I find that a lot of times there's just so many compromises in terms of image quality, simply because of noise, that you don't really want to go there. You don't really want to bother so much, unless it's something that you really want to capture, right? So that's it with the image quality. And finally, I want to talk about also why I'm selling this lens. I do love this lens, but I find it is really the last point that I made that is more important to me, because I can capture a lot of pictures, especially when I'm when I'm a tourist with this lens, and it doesn't require you to change lenses, so that's really a plus. And if changing lenses is something that is difficult, if for example you are in certain areas where there's environmental elements that makes you resistant or hesitant to change lenses, this could be an option. This could be a great option. And if you are in, of course, areas where it's not very safe, of course the same argument applies. But you always are left with the thought or the idea whether you have captured the best picture that you can, given your ability, given your camera, let's say, given the lighting situation. So in my mind, I'm taking a picture. I'm not a pro. I'm not taking it for the money. I'm taking a picture because I want to create some beautiful images as a hobby, and to remind myself later on to of my experience of going to places, or perhaps just because the season changes, right? Where I also shoot a lot around where I live. The season changes, the little birds, the cows, the grass, the flowers, they come once, they go, and they don't come back. And sometimes you are left wondering whether you have captured the best that you can, so that you be able to recall that memory. And it is for that emotional value I do find that having a zoom lens sometimes is not necessarily the best option out there. But of course, if you are someone who just want to travel aloud, travel lightly, travel without much consideration of necessarily comparing the best image possible, but you just want to capture the moments, and sometimes perhaps with some insufficiencies image quality-wise, then I do recommend this lens, perhaps not necessarily at full retail, but you know, if you can find one used, and I've found so many used, a lot of people are trying to sell this lens. I do understand, because Sony at a certain point was selling this lens together with A7 III as a kit lens, and I suppose a lot of people have got this lens at a good price, and they are thinking about switching it out, perhaps trying something new. Everything that I said, I think is understandable, but from my point of view, I want to move on, but at the same time, I really recommend people who find that they may need this lens, something like it, to really try it out. And of course, I'm selling this lens too. So that's my review. And of course, as you may have noticed, this video is recorded at one go, so I'm not making any edits. And to be absolutely honest with you, I don't want to make any edits because it takes time. So if there's some lighting situations that's not optimal, I apologize. And of course, I'm shooting this with a manual focus lens, so if this video is slightly out of focus sometimes, I also apologize. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I will put a link to my website and my blog, in fact, where I have some pictures taken with this lens. And of course, thank you very much, and have a great day.